Welcome to Share the Load, the podcast, brought to you by the DPJ Foundation. This is a space for honest conversations, real stories and shared experiences, shining a light on the challenges we face and reminding each other that none of us have to carry the load alone. In each episode, we'll be talking with people from across our community, exploring life, work, mental health and the realities that shape us, the good, the difficult and everything in between. Before we begin, we want to let you know that some episodes may include sensitive topics, including discussions around mental health and suicide. If at any point you find the content upsetting, please take a moment, pause and look after yourself. If you or someone you know needs support, we encourage you to reach out to a trusted person or a professional organisation. You can also call our 24/7 call line on 0800 587 4262 and you can find further information on our website. This is Share the Load.
Croeso i'r Rhannwch y Baich, y podlediad a ddygwyd I chi gan sefydliad DPJ. Mae hwn yn lle ar gyfer sgyrsiau gonest, straeon go iawn, a phrofiadau ar enir, gan daflu goleini ar yr heriau rydym yn ei hwynebu ac atgoffa'n gilydd nad oes rhaid i'r un ohonom gario'r baich ar ei pennu ein hunain. Ym mhob penod, byddwn nhw'n siarad â phobl o bob cornel o'n cymuned, gan archwilio bywyd, gwaith, iechyd meddwl a realiti sy'n ei llunio. Y da, yr anodd, a phopeth rhyngddynt. Cyn I ni ddechrau, rydym am roi gwybod I chi y gallai rhai penodau gynnwys pynciau sensitif, gan gynnwys trafodaethau ynghylch iechyd meddwl a hunanladdiad. Os byddwch chi ar unrhyw adeg yn teimlo bod y cynnwys yn ofidus, cymerwch eiliad, oedwch, a gofalwch amdanoch eich hun. Os oes angen cefnogaeth arnoch chi, neu rhywun rydych chi'n ei adnabod, rydym yn eich annog I gysylltu â pherson dibynadwy neu sefydliad proffesiynol. Gallwch hefyd ffonio ein llinell alwadau 24 awr y dydd, 7 diwrnod yr wythnos ar 0800 587 42 62 a dod o hyd I ragor o wybodaeth ar ein gwefan. Dyma Rhannwch y Baich.
Welcome to the next episode of our podcast. This is episode 9 and I'm really glad to welcome a new co-host.
Ooh,
Hi,
hello.
Gethin.
Hello.
Gethin, you can introduce yourself in a second, and then we've also got our lovely guests Andrew and Ren as well. So Gethin is a trustee for DPJ. Also, very famous face in Wales.
Oh, stop it.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself then, Gethin.
I'm Gethin Bickerton. I have been a trustee for the DPJ, I think it's coming up to 4, maybe, if not 5 years, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
And I am from a farming background in Montgomeryshire. We're a beef and sheep farm. And I got into the arts at a very young age through Young Farmers. And I now work as an actor on S4C, on a regular soap up in North Wales.
Come on,
so I get
give it a plug.
Round a round. And I play a very upbeat character who's a hairdresser. So a little bit different from me, but, you know, some similarity somewhere.
Brilliant.
But I get to live in a gorgeous place in the north of Wales with wonderful views.
Fantastic. And Ren, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me today. So I'm Ren Fisher. I'm not from a farming background, but I decided for some reason that I wanted to work with sheep.
Okay.
So I took myself off to Aberystwyth University, and I've been in farming now for over 20 years. I live on the Welsh borders, I live with my wife, and I've got 2 sons, aged 8 and 11.
Brilliant. And so was it just like from a young age, sheep were just...
Yeah, I think it was like in my blood as well, because I've got grandparents that would farm
Brilliant.
in Knighton. And I just went and helped out at lambing, and was like, just fascinating as well, because Ludlow was a very foodie place. Like, there's a lot of kind of a slow food movement. So I was always really fascinated kind of from farm to fork about the food system. So it was just something that I kind of followed into, and I will still love it more than ever.
Brilliant, good. And Andrew?
Hi, so my name is Andrew Powell. I'm a farmer's son, 4th generation farmer's son from Glamorgan. Like Gethin, I also went through Young Farmers and loved that experience for the most part. And then now I'm working in civil service policy design. So a little bit different from farming.
Yeah, just slightly different.
Yeah, Dad tells me it's not a real job, but I think he'd be happy if I worked for DEFRA maybe.
Oh, maybe, but maybe that's in the future, you never know, possibly. So do you want to tell us a little bit more then about your kind of role within agriculture then and what that involves?
Yep, so I've done a few roles, but I've worked as a farm manager, trained as an agronomist and worked as an agronomist. And now I work, say, do a couple of things, but say 4 days a week I work for the Soil Association in the Farm and Land Use team. So I'm a farming advisor for them, and also the Welsh lead for the Soil Association. And then I also do some independent work, some say on-farm ecology observations and soil work. And I've also do quite a lot of work around kind of EDIs, particularly in like neurodiversity and agriculture and LGBTQ kind of training and awareness.
Yeah, so that leads us, I suppose, nicely on to kind of our discussion topic today, which I think is a really important topic, isn't it? And I know, Gethin, like we've had many conversations over the years, haven't we, in our roles as trustees about the importance of these discussions around LGBTQ and what we can do in the community and what we can do as a charity actually to be able to support that. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you guys probably know a lot better than I do, that actually there's probably a real issue in the community with being open and honest about this, isn't there?
Yes.
And about what's going on, because, realistically, there are very few farmers who are openly come out as gay, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah.
And I think actually, we do sort of tend to see a culture of that not being deemed as something that is done frequently, regularly. Is that right, Gethin?
Yeah, of course it is. I think it's definitely something. It's something very, very personal to the individual. And it can happen at different times in people's lives. For me, it happened. Started questioning my sexuality about 16 years old. So, and during exams, and it's quite a stressful time for a young person. And there's a lot going on in people's minds, and you're figuring out yourself. You want to know who you are and where your place is in society. But I know people who have had those thoughts and conversations later on in life as well.
Yeah.
So it's something really personal to the individual, and I think it's so important to have good people around you to talk about it.
I get the feeling that maybe the agricultural sector potentially doesn't necessarily lend itself really to being able to kind of openly, come out in that sense. What are your thoughts around that, Andrew, or your experiences maybe, if you're willing to share them?
Yeah, of course. I think I would agree. I don't think the farming community is always the most accepting when it comes to LGBTQ people. I also think there's a role modelling thing. Like, I didn't see gay people, gay farmers, when I was a child. So I think that's something as well. It was very much a case of you were expected to grow up, get married, take over the farm.
Yeah.
And so when you're perhaps doing something, or you're feeling that isn't for you and you're going to be taking a different path, it can be quite a lonely place, I think. And we're lucky now, we've got role models, and we've got Nigel Owens, we've got, there's people online now. But I think for me, that was the thing. It was, you basically are taught in farming that you're going to grow up, you're going to get married, you have kids, you'll take over the farm. Yeah. And then you're not going to do that. And
that's an immense amount of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, massive.
When you're kind of being told, not told, because I don't think anyone's outwardly ever said that, have they? No. But it is almost the unsaid expectation that that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And then when you can feel yourself, I suppose, thinking, actually, I'm not going to fulfill that. And families is a very important thing within agriculture, that strong kind of family connection. So that's quite difficult, I'd imagine, to be able to not feel like you're going to fulfill that, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that feeling of, you're going to let other people down. Yeah. That's what it was for me anyway. I felt like I was letting other people down.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I wasn't going to do that. So to me, that was perhaps a bit more of a burden than actually my sexuality. Yeah. Was actually the fact that I thought I was going to be letting down my family.
Yeah. And did that put you off then, kind of talking to your family about your sexuality?
Yeah, I suppose, for a while. I mean, I came out quite early. I was 17.
Yeah.
And my family were incredible. And
that's really good.
All my grandparents incredible as well. Farming grandparents amazing. So, it was perhaps a bit more of a big deal in my head than it was actually in reality. I was most disappointed, actually. I didn't get some drama.
I wanted the drama. I wanted the stress.
But you're so right. I built it up to be such a big thing in my head. And, you can think of a million different scenarios of how people are going to react with that news. And it's one of the most vulnerable things you can ever do, I think, is tell somebody such a and such a big part of your life as well, and your sense of self. But I was the same. I was very grateful to have a very accepting family. It took me a while to come out to everybody. I wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with the people who I cared about most, and it took me over a span of 5 years to do that. Just, busy life, but I wanted to have that one-on-one moment with.
So while
with people.
over those kind of period, those 5 years, then presumably you know it wasn't kind of open at that sense because you wanted to be able to speak to people individually, or was it?
I think I was studying in Cardiff at the time and travelling back on weekends and living this bit of a double life, which it was quite exciting actually that I could switch on and then switch off at the farm, and I had like an escape for both sides of my life, which was quite nice, and I got to a bit of a balance. But then all of a sudden opportunities started rising for me to be in documentaries and job opportunities where I would be expressed as a gay character or myself. So I thought, right, these lines are merging now. But yeah, I was gutted that I didn't get a reaction. No slamming of doors, no writing out of wills or anything like that.
Not round now.
But you know, obviously that's my
writing out of wills.
But hey, I mean,
but that's what went through your head.
It was a fear. It was a genuine fear of mine that you know, and a lot of other people, young people that I know. I think particularly men. I'm not sure. Please, you know, share your experiences. But from my experience with the other gay men from an agricultural background, it was really the pressure of taking over the farm and of inheritance, and a real genuine fear that they were going to be cast out or written off, or you know. So I am extremely grateful for my community and my family and my friends that I was so accepted.
Yeah, and that's two obviously, you know, really positive stories, which I personally feel like really delighted about, having got, you know, friends who are part of this community who didn't have quite such an easy ride, I would say, purely down to, like you mentioned, you know, their own sort of thoughts and fears around that, when actually, you know, they've been, you know, very much accepted. But it's not always the case, is it? No. And like I said, our rural community probably doesn't help that situation a little bit. You mentioned, I think you said you were brought up in Ludlow.
Yes.
What sort of experience did you have with that then growing up? Because you said you weren't brought up in farming, different thing. You know, did you have a different experience, these guys, about your thoughts and feelings around that?
No, I think my journey was very similar. Like I knew from a younger age, but I tried very hard to, again, it's that kind of what they call heteronormativity, so that kind of conscious societal expectation. And I think even though I'm not from a farming background, it was, firstly, because I'm 45 this year, so I think things have moved on a little bit, but it's that kind of expectation that you're going to get married, have children, and I did do that to a man, and it's only a bit later in life that I couldn't ignore it anymore and was like, actually, no, this isn't who I am, this is not my authentic self. And say, I feel happy and more content than ever. But because of, say, living rurally, going to agricultural colleges, I remember one night in Aberystwyth, I went to an LGBTQ night and ran away. Someone said to me, "Oh, are you really gay?" And I just ran. And it was just that.
This is prior to you marrying your husband?
Yes. Yes. So I say, I look back now and it was so obvious. But I was just, I want to do the expected societal...
what thing,
Yes,
absolutely. So you mentioned, you know, obviously that was a long time ago and like things have moved on, but have things really moved on that much? Because, you know, yes, okay, it is more commonplace and I think we do, you know, it's far more acceptable, but have we actually moved on that much within the rural communities?
Yeah, I think maybe not so. I think kind of in like just
society.
My 11-year-old kind of him and his friends very open and aware of like things that we wouldn't have been. But then if you just read the Farmers Weekly comments, if they put a gay marriage, like they're so just soul crushing sometimes. The derogatory comments that are on there that show that, like you said, not received positively in all spaces.
The struggle I have with things like that is those people might not say that in person. You know, keyboard warriors, it's so easy to have a negative view straight away and post it. I think my experience, it's odd because I'm on road, I'll say it again. But because I have that and I have my agricultural life, I have my representation with the DPJ, my experience has become quite positive. So I'm glad I can kind of have, and I hold the agricultural upbringing that I've had, and I spend a lot of time on the farm as well. I hold it dear to my heart as well. So when I go to farming shows and stuff, I feel really proud that I can be there whilst also playing this openly gay character, whilst also being gay myself with a partner. And it's really nice that I can hold everything and show everything together.
Yeah. Is that a place that you thought at some point that you would never get to?
Oh, I never thought I'd be in this situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think for such a long time I held my identity as a gay man really close to me. And then when I came out, I actually felt quite empty for a very long time because you build it up, and I felt like there was a big hole that, you know, that I started doing a lot of different things, different jobs and projects to try and fill that space. But yeah, no, I never thought I'd be in this situation that I'm in today. But I do feel very proud.
Yeah. What about yourselves then, Andrew? What about your experience like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was lucky in terms of my family, that they were amazing. The wider agricultural community was really difficult.
Really?
Like, yeah, very, very difficult. You know, and young farmers as well. I mean, I adored young farmers, but that was a very hostile environment for most of my teenage years.
Right.
And even actually when I went back, like, I'm not even sure it's that different now, if I'm honest with you. You know, I went back as a club leader. I did a decade as club leader for my sins. But, you know, I was still getting homophobic slurs as a club leader in my 30s, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think the farming community takes a while to catch up anyway, doesn't it, with the rest of the world sometimes, you know. And that's quite a nice thing in some respects, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in terms of this, I just think there's still a huge stigma. You know, like I said earlier, we're lucky we've got role models now, but I still think there's a certain amount of stigma, specifically within the farming community, that I still face and still feel.
Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Ren?
Yes, again, I've been quite lucky in a similar experience to both of you, that I was quite underwhelmed when I came out to like friends and family. It was like, I'm okay. Like, it was very nothing changed, which was amazing. But I do find things. I think I'm quite straight passing. So I go onto farms, and farmers will say, what do you tell your husband does?
Okay,
and again, it's in that moment of, do I out myself in this moment? Or my wife is trained to be a plumber, so it's quite a masculine presenting job. So I thought, they are a plumber. I mean, in that moment, I have to decide whether to kind of bring that whole conversation up or just...
And do you find yourself not bringing it up because of the complications?
Yeah, it's trying to have to judge it. It's like, how's this going to be received? Are they going to take me less seriously or make a judgment on me when they find out my sexuality? Which again, it's that kind of now that's the area that I'm a bit like I hold back sometimes.
Do you think in reality that, you know, you've all spoken about like your stories and you've all been received, you know, everything's been received really well and you've had a really positive within your kind of family, although there is that negative we've obviously seen online? Do you think the reality of it is, if you did sort of think that they probably would just receive you really well, it's just they like to, because generally, you know, I would have classed my dad, you know, my dad's an old school farmer and whatever else have you, and one of my best friends is gay, and his wonderful partner, you know, we spend a lot of time with them, and my dad adores them, he adores them, whereas if I would have said to him probably 20 years ago, he would have probably been the one making those comments, you know, not because he's a terrible person, because he's not, but because that's the way he was in that community, you know, whereas realistically, he's incredibly accepting of everybody. So do you think people are accepting? It's just...
I think there's a representation point to be made in terms of, you know, 20 years ago, a lot of people weren't out, were they? So I think, you know, there are a lot more people out now. There's a lot more representation. There's huge amounts of LGBT agricultural, like, social groups and things like that. And I think it's like anything, isn't it? Once you're faced with it and it's there in front of you, you probably are very accepting. But 20 years ago, it wasn't just farming that was homophobic.
No, it was everything.
The whole world was homophobic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe it's exposure as well to it. You know, and farming can be such an isolating job. People are not going to come across many varieties of different people, of different races, different genders, different sexualities. So I think exposure to it is key. On the same side is the unknown. I think that can be quite scary to a lot of people, you know, me included, you know, fear of the unknown. You don't know what it means, and what does it mean to be a gay farmer? What does it mean? Well, basically it just means you're a farmer, but you love this person instead of what's the norm. But I think that definition kind of gets lost a little bit, and there's a bit of a grey area. People really don't know if it means something else, that you have an ulterior motive or something Whereas actually we all just want to exist, and if you want to farm, you want to farm, right? So I feel farmers shouldn't really be considering asking or being affected by who you love.
Yeah.
I find that a really strange concept, but I still see the comments.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think if you want to farm in Wales, I think everybody should be allowed to, and I think farmers should be supporting of each other, because everybody's going through the same struggles as well.
Do you get frustrated? I think, you know, it's really difficult. You know, I can kind of try and empathise, but obviously I've not ever sat in your position. And I think, you know, I feel a little bit sort of frustrated about the sense that it's still a thing. You know, it should just be, you love that person and that's great. You know, do you get frustrated about the fact that there are still a lot of young men and young women out there who are struggling to kind of, in the same way that you guys did when you were younger, about those feelings and understanding your sexuality, but also that fear of having to kind of come out, essentially? You know, is there a frustration around that it's not just normal?
I think there is a little bit, for me anyway. I mean, you know, I think the next generation and the generation after are having an easier time to come through it than we did, perhaps. But you never really stop coming out anyway, do you? You know, you spend your life coming out, like, all the time. When you start a new job, when you're into
do you feel like that? Like you're constantly trying to explain?
I feel like I spend my life coming out.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just
and
a one-time
that's really
thing.
hard, because that's not something that I would necessarily have to, you know, from my perspective, I'm obviously quite privileged in the sense that that's not a conversation I have to have with people, you know, people just presume, don't they? So that must be really difficult. And you mentioned about, you know, you've alluded to this already, I'm going on farm. That must be a really difficult thing to have to constantly express that very personal part of your identity all the time, over and over and over again. That must be really difficult.
Yeah, I think it can be. You know, it can be exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're having to, you know, people will ask questions, like when we're saying, you know, what's your wife? Or, I mean, they don't say it with me. Nobody could think I was straight. I mean, Kate's known me for 30 years. But, you know, I think
you never know.
You never know. But I think that is something, you know, you just to have to keep sort of not justifying yourself, but just having that conversation. It can feel a little bit exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
And why? Why are we having that conversation?
Yeah, I suppose that's what I was getting at, that frustration about having to kind of continuously, like in this day and age, we've come on so far, haven't we? In so many different elements of life, the fact that we're still having to kind of, you know, explain who we are and why we love who we love is a really difficult concept to understand, isn't it? What's your sort of thoughts on that? Is there any frustration with you about the fact it's not?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest fears, I think, for a lot of people is that rejection, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think kind of all levels, they even say kind of on farm, again, it's that kind of, someone might reject you because of who you are and who you love. And I think when I first came out, it was more of my personality, but now I kind of see it as it's just part of who I am.
Yeah,
like there's lots of parts to me, and just the fact that I'm a lesbian, I've got a wife, that is just a small part of who I am.
Yeah,
it's not like, so I think people just, I don't know, I think other people seem to think of it as quite a big deal, but it's not really. It's just me living my life.
Yeah. And I think you're right what you said. You know, the next generation, I think, is going to be really different. You know, I teach primary school age children, and we've got a huge number of parents, same-sex parents and things like that. And it's so important that it is just normal place, you know, for a child to be like mum and things like that. You know, it is really important, isn't it? What I also think has potentially helped, and you might agree or disagree, is the use of social media. And I know that you know, on Instagram, there's a number of farmers that I follow who are quite high profile within the agricultural community, who are, you know, out there and, you know, loud and sort of proud and very much shouting from the rooftops about it, which is great. Do you think that helps?
I think any kind of exposure helps, and sort of tying in the younger generation, you know, I'd say a higher use of social media. So if farming content comes up and happens to show a gay farmer, brilliant, you know. I think any kind of exposure is good in that sense.
What's your views on
It's a
that?
bit of a double-edged sword though, isn't it, social media, I think, to a point. You know, like we were saying about the Farmers Weekly's articles, you see. So, you know, there's good and bad in it, isn't there? But it is really good to see, you know, they've got those people like Ben, and you've got Nigel and all those people that are, you know, out and proud and farming and, you know, very unapologetic about it, which is how it should be. So, you know, there's definitely a good representation and exposure part of it, but I think, you know, I think we have to be mindful as well about the darker side of social media that, you know, we all see.
Yeah, absolutely. There's in true farming style, there's a tractor right outside deciding to drive past. So that's it. We couldn't hear much of what was going on. That's why. But we're keeping it authentic, obviously, aren't we? I want to sort of start thinking really. Obviously, DPJ, we're a mental health organisation, and thinking about your kind of mental health and how that was impacted. And you mentioned about how you were married previously, and then started thinking, has there ever been that link to your mental health because of your sexuality? I don't know, whoever wants to.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled significantly in my teenage years with my mental health around my sexuality. And then at university, I went to agricultural college. So,
okay.
I was the only gay in the village, for want of a better phrasing.
Yeah.
And that was really hard, really, really hard.
So what sort of things did you face then?
Constant homophobia, physical abuse.
Gosh.
Like a lot of physical abuse. Just really being unwelcome all the time. Like
Yeah.
I remember the guy who was in charge of the accommodation at the college told me I wasn't allowed to wear pink, and I wasn't allowed to dance with the girls because it upset the straight boys, and that was coming from the actual teachers. So it was that constant feeling of not being good enough and negativity all the time that really affected my mental health. And then I've been through several periods of self-harm,
right.
Which started at uni, and it was just dealing with that constant negativity all the time. Because coming out, as we've explained, it's a difficult thing, and then when you do that and you make that step and your family are great, you expect everything else to kind of be nice as well and fluffy and rosy. And it
like
really
you've done
isn't.
the hardest
You've
part,
done the
realistically,
hard bit,
in your
in
head,
theory,
haven't you? Yeah.
But that was the easy bit, really.
Yeah.
It was,
but I bet in your head that was always going to be the hardest bit,
of course,
wasn't it? Yeah. Gosh, so how did you manage that then, with all of the, with the physical abuse and the mental abuse that you faced at that point? Obviously, that took a toll on you with your self-harm.
Yeah.
How did you come through that?
Perseverance, I think, more than anything. I did horses at university, and that was where my love was. And I always knew when I was on the yard and I was on the horses, I was on my own, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of strength to get through it.
Yeah.
There wasn't the DPJ Foundation then. And I wouldn't have even known where to go probably.
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't have gone to the doctor in those teenage years, I don't think, and that's another farming thing, isn't it? I mean, but my father's never been to the doctor in his life, I don't think. So, it was just a case of just grin and bear it. And,
must have been hugely isolating.
Hugely isolating,
Yeah. And do you feel, you must feel a certain amount of resentment for the way that you were treated at that point?
I'm not sure I'd use the word resentment, to be honest with you. No, and I don't think I'd change her now.
Would you not?
No, because it's made me a much stronger person in adult life.
Yeah.
And I look back at it now and I think they did me a favour, really, because I won't put up with it now. So,
That's pretty incredible to be able to come through that and be able to turn around and say that. I don't think I'd be able to have that same...
Yeah, I think you've got to find a positive in everything, haven't you?
I'd have been really angry about it. My angry side when I come out about that, yeah. What about yourself then? Did you find kind of in those years that you were, you said that you're kind of battling and you took those years to come out, was your mental health ever been impacted in that sense, with kind of what you were going through at that point?
Yes, I think we've spoken about role models and knowing our place in society. So when around 16, you've got exams, you've got all these different pressures. I was doing a lot of extracurricular stuff after school, things that I actually enjoyed. And then on top of all of that, you've got questioning your sexuality. So it was, for me, a huge period of really figuring out who I was. And it was a really personal thing for me. I didn't want to share it with anybody because I didn't know how to say it. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well, so I wanted to say it in the right way, which in turn isolated myself. But my drama teacher was the first person that I ever came out to. But it took a long time after that. But to tell one person, that first person that I told, it was surreal. It was such a weight lifted off. It was nothing like I'd ever experienced before. It was like joy, but extreme sadness, and then fear that it's got out. All of these jumbled, and being a teenager, go through all of that teenagers go through as well. But definitely, loneliness, and still, even after telling somebody, that fear of it getting home or getting out or whatever, or being found out. That was real. That was real, and especially in all of the stuff that I was doing. I was meeting a lot of people from a lot of different areas, and you were kind of keeping it to yourself because I had a real sense of ownership, and it was my thing as well. So there was a lot going on. But in turn, I think the more people I told and the more comfortable I felt in myself and knowing what it meant, it started alleviating quite a bit, that sense of loneliness. Yeah. And the big thing for me, I went down to uni in Cardiff, and my friends, I had a gay friend there who was open, and we were like, let's go to Pride. So our first Pride was Brighton. My first ever Pride was Brighton Pride. And in the back of my head, I had this double life, and I had acting and I had agriculture, and I didn't know how they both came together. And went down to Brighton, saw the parades going through, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I see this massive Ferguson tractor with a trailer on the back, and with all these farmers on it. The tractor was red, it was painted, I had the sign Sassy Ferguson, and I cried so much because that was my first visual experience of being gay and being a farmer. It's a possibility, and it exists, and it was possible. So after then, that was, okay, I've got this.
I think that representation is really powerful, isn't it? Because like you said, if you're not kind of got it in your, in your face, in your eye line, then it's really difficult for people to kind of understand that, isn't it? And I suppose a question for you then, Ren, what would you, and all of you really, what would you have wanted as a youngster? Well, you mentioned about going into that room and running away. What would have you wanted in your sight as a youngster that would have maybe helped you with understanding your sexuality and owning your sexuality, I suppose, as a youngster?
I suppose it's difficult, isn't it? Because what I needed really was more representation. Yeah. That was, like, inverted commas, normal. Yeah. And that's the reason I kind of tried to suppress it for so long, is because I just didn't have any representation around me. So I think these kind of, like we said, like social media can be good and bad, but I think it's amazing the matter of what's going on in your life there's always some kind of, I don't know, Instagram page for it, or some kind of online forum that you can join. So I think, and conversations like this, I think a lot more people now, because people are more openly talking about it, you're realising that you're not alone in the situation. And I think that's what I would have needed back then, was just realising that there was other people feeling and thinking just like me.
You. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'd agree. We've said there wasn't really role models, or there wasn't representation. I mean, the gay people you saw on TV when I was like in my early teens were Dame Edna Everage and Lily Savage, and all power to them, amazing. But that wasn't me, and I didn't see myself in anyone. Yeah,
and not necessarily an accurate representation.
Well,
either.
No, exactly. No. But I didn't see myself in anybody, and specifically in farming as well. And that's why I think likes of Agrespect, Ben Andrews, Nigel Owens, like how incredible that the new generation, the next generation, have that as a role model and as a beacon to say, you can actually exist perfectly well as a gay man in farming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or gay woman.
Or gay woman.
Or gay woman, exactly that. So a bit of like a harsh statistic that I've sort of found, obviously suicide in the agricultural sector is as we know, is very prevalent, and people will carry the highest rate of suicide. But one statistic that I found out as well recently is that you are 2.2 times more likely to die by suicide if you're from the LGBTQ community. That's like a really stark statistic, isn't it? And I think having had sort of just the conversation we've had so far, you can really see why, Andrew in particular, I think I feel really kind of amazed by your bravery really to kind of come through what you've come through. Can you see kind of why that statistic is so stark, and what can we do to be able to try and suppress that statistic and stop this from kind of being something that is so prevalent within not just the agricultural community, but in general?
I think a lot of responsibility lies in the people around that person. We were saying, role models would have been wonderful. And I think just having people to talk to, and people, I suppose, more open-minded, who would accept and just engage, or just listen, actually. People who just listen and try to understand and have that curiosity. I think if you're experiencing somebody who could be going through it, or if somebody comes up to you and reveals that's a huge thing for them. And I think family, friends, work colleagues, neighbours, having that sense of curiosity and asking questions, or just being kind and accepting and asking if they need any help or anything, I think is really, really crucial and would be beneficial. Because equally, like mental health problems, it can feel very, very insular and very personal and very kind of holding your sense of self. I think people around just have a sense of kindness and curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts around that? You do?
Yeah, I think within the farming industry generally, it has been quite stoic, hasn't it? It's just just get on with it. I haven't talked about kind of other people struggling with the same areas as you. It's just been get on with the job. So I think that is fortunately slowly changing. But I can share what kind of helped me. Kind of what they call the messy middle bit. So obviously, when I realised that I was gay, and it blew up my life because I was married to a man, 2 children, living in a nice house in the country, very comfortable financially, but I knew that I couldn't keep living a lie. And actually, I know Ben Andrews, so he added me to Agri Respect, and I think I just put in a WhatsApp message saying I need someone to talk to, and I started talking to someone in Agri Respect that had to say a gay man, but he'd come out later in life, had left his wife, and I just remember sit in a lane in the country, just having a phone call with him, and that was just. Yeah, because he was, a bit ahead of me, slightly older, and that was just absolutely amazing, just be talking to somebody else who'd been in a similar situation, was a few years on, and their life was good.
And you weren't alone in
and
that
I wasn't
feeling
alone in
that
that feeling. And that was what I'd say, just still kind of sticks in my memory as something that was
That must have been really
massive.
difficult to tell your husband at the time.
Yes.
That was going on.
Yes.
What was the kind of reaction from the wider sort of family and community? Did you feel backlash from that? Were you...
Again, as they say about being underwhelmed, in my head I thought all the school mums were going to absolutely ignore me at the school gate. But like I said, no one cared. And even told I've got 2 nans that are still alive. And they've been, as long as you're happy. I've been very fortunate, and all my friends as well, very fortunate. Since coming out, I feel like I found a bit more of my tribe. I'm in this amazing, it's called Dykes Who Hike.
I love that.
Dykes That Hike Shropshire. It's amazing. It's 200 dykes in Shropshire that like to hike.
That is amazing.
It's just finding those. I think it's a London one. It's groups all over the country. But they have been so supportive, and again, just a variety of people that came out later in life, people that have been known for a long time, but just a really lovely, supportive group of women. We've even got DIY dykes, or a subgroup now, where we help each other with gardening and DIY and
subcommittees.
So yes,
I love that. That's brilliant. And things like that, are what is needed, and that more representation. Sorry. What about yourself then, Andrew?
Yeah, I think AgRespect is incredible. That really.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I think it'd be really, because anyone who's listening who isn't aware of AgRespect, I think it'd be really good for people to understand a little bit more about what that is, possibly.
Yeah, so AgRespect is it's basically an LGBT farming social group, I would say is the best way to describe it. Ben Andrews is one of the founding members, and then they did Brighton Pride, which is where you saw them. And I joined probably just before COVID, actually. But it's really, really good. And it helped me in COVID a lot, because my mental health was bad in COVID. I think being stuck in a room on your own all the time. And I was answering suicide calls for the job centre.
Wow.
So stuck in a room, listening to that all day. And then it was really hard. Yeah, so they did a weekly quiz, online quiz with AgRespect. And that really helped me get through lockdown, because you still had that connection with people. So.
And things like that are important, aren't they? You mentioned, DPJ unfortunately was, born through a suicide, but organisations like this are so important, aren't they, to be able to kind of access that support. And you mentioned about the Dykes That Hike group, which is incredible. I think it's brilliant. And finding those groups of people are really important, aren't they? We've touched a couple of bits about role models, haven't we? And about kind of those sort of role models, and how important is kind of the expression of the image of those role models, because we've had a discussion in the previous podcast about role models in farming, with women in farming, and about how sometimes there can be quite a negative portrayal of some women in farming because of the way they express themselves and things. Is that the same with that, with your community? Do you feel like, is there a pressure, for example, to sort of be like, oh, I can do this because I'm strong and I'm I look like a farmer? Do you know what I mean? Is it that pressure, or is it just that representation is whatever goes? One of the girls, for example, was the way she described herself was like 5 foot and nothing or something, and could be blown over in the wind. She was tiny, lovely, brilliant. But she said, that I can do things as much as anybody else, and that was sort of it. But she knew her limitations. Is that representation in the community as important as, how you come across? I don't know if I'm making myself clear with that question.
Yeah, no, you are.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's the fact that there's someone living authentically as a gay person and farming, irrespective of their image or, whatever they wear or anything like that. I mean, that wouldn't enter into my sort of process, my process, I don't think.
Yeah.
I just see them as, someone's farming and being out and proud and, very open about it and letting the world know,
And I suppose the fact that they're just openly talking about it, that's the important aspect of it, isn't it? Rather than the image at that point, isn't it? Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent, not interviewed, but I wrote a bit of an article for something called Queer Grown, and I think it might be in America, not this country, but they literally publish on Instagram stories about queer people working in rural industries.
Oh, really?
And I took part of that, and it's just little nuggets like that on the internet. I think just seeing other people's stories and representation is really useful.
And do you think social media has been really beneficial in that sense, to be able to kind of drive that? I mean, you say going back when I was in school, there was no social media, so we wouldn't have had that representation. And I probably grew up with a very skewed view about what, LGBTQ looked like within the community, because unless it was in front of my face, you didn't really see it, did you? Social media has helped to a certain extent. Would you agree that with that?
Yes.
What more is there that social media can do?
I think it's telling stories, isn't it? Like, I was really lucky that I got to tell my story through the DPJ for LGBT History Month.
Yeah.
And that was honestly the most cathartic experience.
Really?
To be able to just say everything I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And in an agricultural setting, in an agricultural forum, was so cathartic.
And how was it received? How did you feel like that was received?
Yeah, really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really well.
That's really positive.
But I think it's because they're seeing it on there, they're seeing it in front of them.
Yeah.
And once you listen to someone's story, it's very hard then to still be, any kind of negativity towards someone, isn't it?
And I think, we had a conversation before we started recording about how, I think it was your words, Gethin, that farming is for everybody, isn't it? Yeah. And it's kind of that understanding that we've all got a backstory, regardless of what has happened and what has gone on, we've all got a story, but actually it's really important. And I think you suggested that message was really important, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. The message is that farming is for everybody. It's about the land, it's about the people, and it's about the community, and there's a place for everybody in that. I wholly believe that there is a space for anybody in the farming community. And I think we should be proud of anybody. If there's a young farmer who wants to start farming, regardless of their sexuality, if there's a young person or somebody older who wants to get into farming, I think we should be encouraging it and not finding ways or reasons to not.
Yeah. So I want to think now, hopefully we've got lots of people listen to this podcast, and somebody perhaps who's at home who's young, who's potentially going through the same sort of feelings that you are, maybe, the same sort of things. They're in the agricultural community, they're in the young farmers clubs and things like that. What advice would you give that young person who is, perhaps hasn't come out, is dealing with their sexuality and not really sure what to do next? What tips and advice would you give that person? And then I got a sort of second part to the question I'll come to in a second, but Andrew, what advice would you give them?
That's a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think what I would say is reach out. Don't be afraid to have those conversations with some, like the DPJ, like AgRespect, anything like that. But the biggest message I tell you is it gets better. Yeah. It really does get better.
Yeah. That's positive. Yeah, that's good. What about you, Ren?
I'd say similar really. So again, it's about finding your tribe, isn't it? And I think it's easier now to do that, so like you said, through AgRespect and different organisations, of actually finding people that are going through similar to you. And I'd absolutely agree with you. I never thought that like, this is the most like happiest and content I've ever been in my life. So it does get better once you're more confident within yourself and like kind of more happy with who you are.
Yeah. What about yourself, Kath? What would you say?
I would say, yes, you're allowed to be a gay farmer in Wales.
Yeah,
there is a place for you here.
Yeah, most
there
definitely.
is living proof that people are farming, successful farmers, you know, who are ingrained within their communities. So yeah, there is a space for you. You are allowed a seat at the table.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I suppose then the next kind of part to that then is, I could be wrong. I suspect there's an awful lot of people out there in the farming community who are leading a bit of a double life, essentially, much like, you know, you mentioned about yourself, you know, you followed that social norm of getting married and having children, or maybe even some people who didn't get married and haven't had children but have lived, you know, a life as a single straight man potentially. I suspect that there's quite a few that are out there, I think, that are not living their kind of authentic life because of the nature of our industry and kind of the views that people have. What would your advice to them be then? Because they're almost in a different situation, aren't they? Where they've lived this entire life. Maybe they're living in this position where they've set their life up. You know, they're not, you know, they're years down the line, really, aren't they? And making that decision, you know, maybe do they have to make that decision to come out? Do they have to do that? You know, how can they live authentically, you know, without that? Any thoughts on that one?
I think,
am I wrong? You know, please tell me, am I wrong?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I definitely don't think so, sadly.
Yeah.
But I don't think coming out is such a personal thing for a person. And, you know, if you've got to your mid-40s and you haven't come out and that works for you, then that works for you.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'd want to give them any advice, but I'd want to say that there is help out there.
Yeah.
There is a place for you. Everyone belongs.
Yeah.
You know, and living authentically is very different for everybody, isn't it? Like, living authentically for me is out and proud.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, their authentic self might not be that.
No, absolutely. What about you, Ren? Any thoughts on that?
Because it is a really brave thing to do.
Incredibly brave.
And I think it depends on context. It depends who you've got around you in your community and how supported you feel as well. So absolutely understandably, if someone just doesn't feel ready, that's absolutely fine. But it is just that I think it's potentially for some people at some point you just can't hide it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like they can't live their life to the full. But I think if you do come out, the people that matter will be there and support you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love what you said. Do they even need to come out?
Well,
I mean,
I thought, like, you know, it's like we've talked about this whole thing, and I know that you're all very underwhelmed by the fact there was no drama, and I'm so sorry that there wasn't. I can kick off some drama now if you like to try and rectify that. But you know, it is, you know, there's like, is there that need? You know, can you? I think for me, it's probably this whole thing of like, I would hate to feel if somebody who had lived their entire life without coming out. And maybe they don't want to make a big deal about it, but maybe is there a way of, you know, like if we talk about ag-respect and things, you know, accessing people who are like themselves in their own private and confidential way without saying to the world, so they could happily live their life in any way they want with people thinking whatever they want. You know, it's not necessary, is it?
Well, I think that's... I long for a future where coming out will be a concept of the past.
Yeah.
You know... are you a farmer? Yes, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's
it's like what you were talking about with this. It's not just you came out once. It's like that constant thing, isn't it? And like I really, you know, gosh, that really has like hit with me, to be honest with you, about that whole thing. And you're right, what you're saying, isn't it? You're just gonna introduce yourself like, "Hi, I'm Gethin," and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to explain who you're married to and why you know you've chosen that. And
it's such a personal question. I just don't think it needs to be asked at all.
Yeah.
I think having that curiosity about the person rather than anything else about them. And I think with farmers, if you're a farmer, there's a kind of respect there, and hold on to that as well, because everybody's going through the same struggles. And a lot of the same emotions are going on within the farming community. So, yeah, I long for a time where the concept of coming out, which is so strange, it doesn't happen for any other people, but that just gets gone, and then you can just exist as yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you mentioned about earlier on about showing kindness, and I suppose like another sort of element to this question then is, you know, if somebody's got a friend or maybe a child who, you know, they think potentially could be experiencing issues with their sexuality, potentially this child has, you know, mental health issues or something, that, and maybe that's how it's presenting itself. You know, we've talked about showing kindness and that kind of acceptance and things, and not throwing people out the will. And maybe, you know, maybe they want the drama, maybe it's great, but, you know, what advice would you give to parents then who potentially think that their child could be experiencing questions over their sexuality?
I am not a parent. However, I think I'd say yes, that kindness, that curiosity, I think is a real staple.
Do you think asking outright is the right thing to do? Like, is it kind of like, if you had those questions and you thought that was the case, would that be something you would say, look, you know, is it, you know, we talk about suicide, right, really openly in DPJ, and one of the best ways of dealing with suicide is just being straight up front with it. It's not the same thing, but is it the same thing? Is it the same thing of just, you know, would you ask that, or would you just provide that kindness and that love and that caring? Andrew was like, no.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to ask.
No.
I think showing it's a safe place would be the biggest thing.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
when they're ready, that you're a safe place for that to... Because I was actually going to ask you two, when you came out to like friends and family, were they all surprised, or were some of them like, well, I knew anyway?
Girl. They are me. They knew before me.
That's often the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
That like you're kind of got this big secret you're hiding, and some people are like, how did you that? I was just waiting for you to tell me. So.
We say this about my friend, so I'm sure my friend won't mind me mentioning it, but we said this about him, and when it was a big thing for him, and then we were just like, okay, we knew like for years, it's fine. And then we went travelling together, and his parents didn't know, and I've just, one of my most funny memories is his mum and dad packing us off to go in the car. My mum and dad are driving, they knew fully well that he was gay, and then his mum and dad were going, don't go and get married without us now, and me and Steve were like, what? Like, not a chance, mate, it's not happening. I was like, you're absolutely fine there, like, don't panic. And my mum and dad in the front were like, oh my God. But, you know, it is, isn't it? It's like, it's really tricky, isn't it, for that? Yeah, but he was obviously quite obvious about what he said there. Yes, my mum and my sister knew.
They knew, did they?
They knew, no. Just had an interest in drama from a very young age. I mean, the signs were there. I remember Mum telling me when I was 3, I think I said my favourite colour was pink, and then that's when the penny dropped for her. But it's so strange because there's no conversations about it afterwards, and I think there's that fear again of, you know, it could be true, so then you don't talk about it, so then when it's not spoken about and you don't see it becomes a bit of this unknown that can get a bit scary. And, but I hope now that there are role models out there, that there are people to talk to, that people can feel like if they wanted to speak to somebody they could, which would be a different experience for some of us when we were growing up.
Can I ask then, you know, is it a whole nother level then when you introduce a partner? Because obviously, like, you know, you've come out and that's one thing, but actually introducing a partner to the family, was that, again, another sort of difficult thing? Yeah?
Especially if they were from a farming background as well. I mean,
okay.
You know, I had a boyfriend at university. How was I taking him out to my father when he drank white wine spritzers? I mean, it was never going to work. It just wasn't going to work, was it? So I think that was a part of it.
Yeah.
I think, finding a farming boyfriend would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, like a needle in a haystack.
Exactly,
Yeah. What about yourself, then, Gar?
Found my needle.
You found your needle? Is he from farming background?
He is indeed,
I knew he was into like the sea and things because he works for...
So his grandparents had a farm.
So he grew up... needle.
Found the needle.
Cute.
There we go.
That's
there
cute,
we go. Shout out to Reese. So it has a background in farming, and I think when I organised it, because I'm a perfectionist, I was like, right, you're going to come on this day to the farm, and then everybody's going to be there, and
were you like
organised it. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because it's one thing telling them that you're gay, is another thing saying, oh, I've got a boyfriend. I actually thought at the start that getting a boyfriend and bringing him home as a friend and then saying, oh, he's
By the
actually my
way,
boyfriend.
yeah.
That would have been an easier transition, but obviously life never works out the way you planned. But the minute I said that, oh, yeah, I think his grandparents have a farm. Yeah, he understands farming. I felt a switch. I don't know what it was, but there was this mutual understanding. And Rhys came to the farm and was helping with the pet lambs this lambing time. And being able to do jobs and having that curiosity and joy of doing it, I think just made the process a whole lot easier for me.
Whereas Andrew was like, leave your white wine spritzer in the car, please. Although I have seen my dad and Steve on several occasions drinking pina coladas together. So, you know, these things can happen. They can happen. And then what about your stuff then? Because yours is obviously quite different because you had the children then involved in that situation as well, didn't you?
Yes. So I say, introducing to kind of family was like, I say my one nan was the last person I told, but then as soon as my now wife was like putting like shelves up in her kitchen and things, she was just sold. She's like, yeah, this is brilliant. But yeah, like I say, it was interesting with the children because obviously they were quite young at the time. And I had, got a girlfriend, and I just said, would you mind if this person was my girlfriend? And my eldest said, girls can't have girlfriends. And I said, they can. He went, oh, it's okay, then I just didn't know.
Yeah, and
that was it.
Yeah,
that was it.
And that's as simple as it is, because I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's not like this big thing. I think people sort of think it's got to be this big, you know, unit in school and a big thing around it. You literally just have to say, that's the way it is. And kids just buy into it. You know, they don't question it. It's just that's normal. And once you make that normal,
he's the biggest little ally now, because if anyone uses like the term gay in a derogatory way, like he's playing on his games, he's like, and what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And it's that.
And isn't that amazing? And like I know I spoke to you about it earlier as well, about like kind of the kids in my class and things who were growing up around these same-sex parents and things. Like, isn't that a wonderful sort of thought for the future? Because I know, Andrew, you know, you spoke about, you know, how things difficult were in your kind of, you know, late teens and things like that. You know, does that give you hope for the future?
Oh God, yeah. And I see my nephews, you know, and they're just so fine with everything. Like nothing phases them.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much acceptance now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's all taken in their stride. So.
It is. It's on a slightly different note, but related. My son has alopecia.
Oh, okay.
So he loses his hair, and I was so worried that transition to senior school.
Yeah.
But again, everyone's been curious, but he's had no issues with that.
Yeah,
but I think a lot of these different subjects, children seem to be a lot more accepting of differences. I think they met potentially when we were at
they
school.
are. And I think, you know, times are changing, aren't they? Like people, you know, children in particular are more accepting, you know, and those children will eventually grow up into those adults, won't they? And I think ultimately that's kind of what we want, isn't it? Is that acceptance, isn't it? If you had like one wish for, you know, the community within, you know, the LGBT community within the farming community, what would that wish be? If you could like wave your magic wand, what would that be? Would you change anything? Would you not? Would you like?
I don't know. It's a hard one, isn't it? Because like the first thing I'd want to say is, you know, to get rid of homophobia, perhaps.
Yeah.
But like in my experience, yes, it was awful, and yes, it took a negative toll on me. But it also made me who I am. So I find it a difficult thing to kind of want to get rid of all of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah. I find that really interesting that you're kind of. You know, fair play, you own that element of your life really well, don't you? And like how that shaped you. Because a huge amount of people, they would feel a lot of resentment towards not only the people that caused that, but also the society that allowed that, really, isn't it?
I just haven't got capacity for it. I could sit and moan about it and I could cry about it and I could let it still drag me down, but I wouldn't be doing myself any favours doing that at all. And it's the same as my scars. You know, I wear my scars with pride.
Yeah.
They're part of me. Yeah. You know, they have led me to where I am today, and I'm in a much better place. I'm very happy. Life's good. So, you know, all of those things that have happened in the past, they're part of me, unfortunately. But they're part of an amazing person now, as opposed to a frightened person in my late teens.
Absolutely.
So.
I think, Ren, were you going to say something?
I'll just say it's like just amazing positive kind of post-traumatic growth attitude you've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm older now.
Yeah. And wiser, isn't it? And it's amazing kind of that with that age, isn't it? That you kind of, you grow and you think. So, you know, we've talked, you know, a lot about kind of this being some really tricky times for everyone and things like that. Give us the good things then. What are the great things about being part of your community now and kind of and how that sort of sits with you? Like what's the great things about that? I know you went a few years ago, didn't you, with the tractor to your Pride, didn't you? did you go to with the tractor with DPJ for a few years ago?
Oh,
to
no.
a Pride in Mid Wales? Somebody did.
Was it me?
We did Powys Pride, didn't we?
We did Powys Pride.
Was that
yes.
the first Pride? Was it that they'd had in Powys?
First Pride in
Yes,
Powys?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it was. I was thinking,
That was
we did have a tractor somewhere, I think. I can't remember. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, a great sense of pride. My gosh, to have one in Powys, where I grew up. That was
On Royal Welsh Week as well.
yeah. No, it was brilliant to think that even home, the agricultural world that can feel a bit 10 years behind, that Powys are like, oh gosh, okay, because I'm not the only gay in the village anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people just feeling a bit more comfortable, I think, in talking about it, and represented in the media, sports, TV. That being gay is not such a quiet thing anymore. I mean, we've never been quiet, have we? But yeah, for me, that was a really proud moment. I've forgotten your question. I'm sorry.
I forgot my own question. I can't remember what I asked you now. I think it was along the lines of, we've talked about things that, were really difficult, but actually what's like great about being that now? You've spoken really clearly about you've come out the other end now and things. What's your kind of favourite part about being part of the community? I know like the dykes on a hike.
Yes.
I can't, right, there's this funny story about this, and I'm going to go into it because it's funny. I played football with a number of girls over the years, and one of the dyke on a hike isn't a new concept to me, just put it there. But she was a very naked dyke on a hike and had a great photograph and showed the entire female football team and the male football team, who all decided at that point they wanted to be female and a lesbian because they were so impressed with her dyke on a hike. I'm not suggesting your photos are the same as that on your hike.
I've not done a naked one yet.
200 on the hill somewhere. It wasn't when I read it on your bio, I was thinking that's not the first time I've seen that one, but no, it was brilliant. But no, generally kind of like what's the best sort of part about the community, being part of your community now that you've been able to reflect back on your kind of journey to this point, I suppose?
I mean, for me, I think the best part of it is community itself.
Yeah.
Much like we talk about farming.
Yeah.
The LGBT community is a community as well. And I love that. I love being part of that community. I love the laughs we have. Going to do stuff with AgRespect is just such a good time.
Yeah.
And that filtering into agriculture now is what I really, really value. I love that we have a social at the Royal Welsh Show now, and it just feels like the worlds are kind of merging. Gethin, you spoke earlier about how we were two very separate worlds, but now it kind of doesn't feel like that. I almost feel like it's just one world now, and like I don't censor myself in any way anymore, which I think is such a nice thing.
And what a lovely way to live, feeling like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can Kate and I come to this event at the Royal Welsh?
Absolutely, yes.
I'm doing a week at the Royal Welsh this year, so like Kate and I we're gonna be coming along with our
Open to allies as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wine spritzer in hand as well. What about yourself then?
Again, I think it's similar again, just feel like I've got like lifelong friends, but since coming out and kind of being my more authentic self, I've just again, I love that word tribe. I know I keep using it, but I find people, because there's quite a big crossover between being neurodivergent and queer. So I found people that are neurodivergent, queer, into food and farming.
Yeah.
So just people that I can just...
They're your people.
Just my people that like you completely unmask around and have shared passions and just feel like real, like... Yeah, like...
And isn't that really important? Because I think I keep saying this to my 13-year-old all the time. I'm like, you will find your tribe one day. Like, one day you will find those people that are your people. And I think, regardless of what community you belong to and your sexuality or gender or anything, it's so important to find those people.
And the more
that
open
are
you are
your
yourself
people. Absolutely.
about that, the more easier it is to connect and find those people.
Yeah. And just being like unapologetically yourself.
Yes.
In whatever, if you like this, if you like that, if you whatever, whatever it is, your hobbies, whatever. It's just being unapologetically yourself and finding those people that you are connected with is just massive, isn't it?
Yes.
It's huge.
And I'd like to say it might not happen in school.
No.
It might not happen in uni. It might not happen in your first, second, third job. It may not happen until very, very later on in life. Some people are very lucky that they can leave primary school with a huge group of friends. And I've seen people who have been friends for over 20 years, and that's so beautiful. Also, equally as good, if not sometimes better, you meet somebody when you're a little bit older and you click instantly and you've found your people. You do have to be active. You join that group.
Yes.
Like we said before, there's a group for
Get
probably
out there.
everything on Facebook and Instagram
absolutely.
now. So find your niche, there will be other people.
And
Across
don't
the
be
UK.
afraid of being part of different tribes as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Like you can be your farmer tribe and go off and sit in your meeting in with, you know, about learning about sheep or whatever, and, you know, whatever you want to do. And then the next night you can be with your kind of other gay friends and doing something like that. Like you can have lots of different tribes, can't you?
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important, is to
Yes.
just know them and just be yourself, isn't it? And think, right, okay, I think we should finish there. I don't know how long I've been speaking for. Dave, I can't decide if he's giving me the nod or not to finish. Yeah, okay, we're done. I could be like 3 hours at this point. I just wanted to really thank you. I think that something I've been really conscious of for many years is the lack of representation for this across our industry. And when we started devising this idea of a podcast, this was really, really something we wanted to make sure we covered. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about this, but thank you for just being open and honest about your experiences and your views. You know, it's really important. And, you know, the trustees here, sat here, are really, really grateful for you. And thank you, Gethin, for being our wonderful trustee.
Of course.
And I don't know what bucket. I'm getting to it.
She's working her way there. I can feel
You
it. I
can't
can feel
see
it.
behind the camera, but the two of the DPJ staff are currently doing hand gestures to me, and it's like
In a bucket,
Did
like
you
like
get
trying
that?
to.
It was going like this. I don't know what I meant.
Oh, I see. I get it
I
now.
can see that. Anyway, so as Kate's kindly reminding me, and I was getting to, we ask everybody at the end of a podcast about what they do to empty their bucket. So we know about the things that fill our bucket and the stresses that we get. But actually, let's finish us on a good point and talk about the things that do empty our bucket. So, as I've mentioned, you know, I'm absolutely convinced there's something not quite right with me. Mine changes every week and every month. It depends on the weather. It depends on how I'm feeling. I'm running a little bit at the moment. I've done it twice. That's enough as a hobby for me. Thank you. It's a hobby now. I like wild swimming and things like that. But, you know, those are the sort of things that I do if I feel like the pressure's getting a bit too much, that I go out and do. So, Gethin, what empties your bucket?
Well, I love dogs. I've always loved dogs. We've always had dogs on the farm.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 at the moment, Spot, Sam and Shep. So just spending time with them. Every time I drive home to the farm, they're always running, coming up to me. They'll jump all over my nice clean clothes. Not my white trainers though. I've learned not to take the white trainers to the farm. But also I love going to the beach with my partner, who obviously works in with the ocean literacy, and go beach combing.
Nice.
So finding bits of plastic and Lego, and on a sunny day, I can't recommend anything better.
Yeah.
Just going on the beach.
The kids like hunting for sea glass.
Yeah, there we
they're
go.
into that,
There we
and then
go.
Doing random pictures.
I thought you were going to say sea glass, not Lego. Lego's
Yeah.
a bit left field.
Well, I mean, there's a story, but I'll leave it there. But there's, sometimes you find little bits of Lego. Little,
And they're really
little
rare,
toys.
aren't they?
Yeah. Old, like, cereal toys and stuff like
It's a
that.
big thing.
And then you can date
Yeah.
them back. And there's a Facebook group that
Yeah.
I am a part of. There we go. That's my little niche.
Yeah, there we go.
And
That's
we've
the little
got-
tribe.
There we go, that's my tribe. And we've got so many gorgeous beaches up in Anglesey. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gethin. And then, Andrew, what empties your bucket?
So like Gethin, dogs. I've got a dog, Tig, so
What breed is your dog?
she's a Welsh collie.
Oh.
She loves Gethin.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, so spending time out with her. The horses still when I get a chance.
Yeah.
Working in London, it's quite hard to have that sort of connection to agriculture and
Yeah.
farm. So I started taking myself to the theatre on my own,
Oh, nice.
and I love it. I can just sit there and cry.
Do
and
you know
nobody
what? Like,
judges me. It's
things
great.
on your own like that are so underrated.
Yeah.
Like, people don't do it
Well,
enough.
you're not going to talk anyway, so
Yeah.
you're just watching a show. So
Yeah.
get myself onto Daytix and get a cheap ticket to go and see something.
So what's the favourite thing you've seen recently?
I saw Rocky Horror the other day. I mean, it's the 12th time I've seen it, but I had it for 10 quid, which I thought was really
10
good.
quid?
Amazing.
Have you seen that fellow Welsh guy, Luke Evans, is on Broadway at the Rocky Horror Show at the
Yes.
moment? Because I messaged my friends and I was like, we should go, and then realised Broadway's in New York.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not quite
You
there,
realised
is it?
Broadway was in New York?
Well, I knew it was
Oh.
in New York, but when I looked at it and then I said we should go, she was like, that's a long way to go just to go and see a show. I was like, one day maybe.
I did exactly the same thing. I
Yeah.
got all excited and I was like,
I was like, he's in
Broadway.
London. I know. I just presumed it was West End, but no, that's an amazing show, isn't it?
Yeah.
I took my mum to go watch it. We had a great time. And then what about yourself then?
Okay, of course the hiking.
Yes.
Not naked though.
No. Maybe try it. It
fully
might be a
clothed.
nice thing to do.
I will suggest it to the organiser of Dykes and
Don't see us come from me.
Again, it's a theme. I've got 4 dogs for my
Oh, okay.
sins. I've got 4 Cocker Spaniels.
Oh,
So
lush.
obviously they have we both need to go out for kind of nervous system regulation walks.
Yeah.
And cooking, I absolutely love.
What's
like,
your
when I hit
signature
them.
dish?
Signature. again, because I've got ADHD, I hate cooking the same thing twice. I like to like mix it up and vary it. But like, I'd like to make a good lasagna.
Oh, nice.
From scratch, making like your own cheese sauce and everything.
Yeah, good.
So yeah.
Amazing. Well,
Can't beat a bit of cooking, can you?
No.
I do like cooking, but my trouble is I like baking, so I like baking cakes and things like that, and then you've just got to eat them.
Gethin
It's
and
not
I
helping
play-
with the weight gain.
Gethin and I play a game where he gives me 3 ingredients and I have to tell him what I'm going to do.
Really?
Yes.
Wasn't
He's
there a
phenomenal.
programme? Wasn't that like Ready, Steady, Cook years ago?
Basically. We won't do it now, we haven't got time, but
No.
it is quite good fun.
Maybe that's something we need to do. We could do a show with it. We'll
There
put
you
it
go.
to Kate.
Spin off.
Kate's just like, yeah, okay, sure. No, and thank you again. You know, I am really, really grateful, and I just hope that anybody listening to this will hopefully be inspired by your stories and about what you said, and take on some of the advice and the tips. And just a reminder, really, to anybody listening that that we are available and we're here to listen and to talk to you. Should you want to discuss anything like about this, and we can certainly signpost onto AgRespect and any other organisations as well. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.